Am I the asshole for selling my late wife's cake recipe to a bakery? My late wife passed 3 years ago. Our two kids were in their late 20s at the time. In a hard few years, and it is even harder now that I live alone. She had a lovely dark chocolate cherry cake. It was my favorite thing that she would make, and I always requested it for Father's Day. I am a shit baker, and I have tried to remake it from her notes. The notes are not very clear, and it never turns out correct. It is depressing spending so much time, and it being wrong. I have asked my two kids to try and make it, but they have refused to. I was told that they will not figure out the recipe and to stop asking. I went to a local bakery and asked for them to figure it out. They agree as long as I gave them the permission to sell the cake in the store. Oh, it didn't take them long to figure it out, and it is almost exactly the same to my wife's. I bought one for Father's Day, and my kids were happy about the cake until I told them the bakery did it. They are pissed. I would sell their mother's recipe to a bakery. This whole week they have been telling me how I am a jerk for this, and I am wondering if I really am a jerk. I just wanted to eat her cake again. Not the asshole. It's funny. My mom died without leaving a complete recipe for one of my favorite dishes. The basic recipe was there, but she must have had a pinch of this, dash of that in her head, because the recipe never tastes like what my mom made. I totally get wanting to have that taste again. When your kids didn't want to try, you took matters into your own hands. Nothing wrong with that. And frankly, if your kids weren't ever going to make the cake, I'm not sure what their beef is about the bakery making it. I'd think of this as a way for your wife to live on in what she created to bring happiness to others. It's not like you did it for the money. Would the bakery consider using your wife's name as part of the item name? Not the asshole. In fall. Have you asked your kids why they refuse to help you with the recipe, and why they are angry that you gave the recipe to a bakery in return for their making the cake and being able to sell it? In fall. What happened to selling it? In the post title you mentioned selling the recipe to the bakery, but in the post body it sounds like it was a trade in exchange for actually figuring the recipe out. Not the asshole. I literally hate the idea behind family secret recipes. It seems incredibly egotistical and self-centered. Further, no one else was making it, and at least now her good-ass cake can be shared with other people instead of just being forgotten about. Not the asshole. By selling it to the bakery, you can have the lovely cake your wife made again. The alternative is never to experience it again. I know what I'd do. Not the asshole. Do your kids understand that you gave them the unusable recipe, and in return, you now have a usable recipe? If they didn't want to fiddle with the recipe, I'd think they would be glad you found a solution. Maybe they think you sold it for money, and they find that offensive. Wow, that's an interesting reaction, considering I asked you to make it for me. You refused to make it and told me to stop asking. So I stopped asking and found another place to make it for me. Not the asshole. Also, the kids may be acting out in anger via a grief response. Not the asshole. My wife is a baker. I would want to preserve and share that memory too. Not the asshole. Your children have no right to complain about this. They were fine with it when they were enjoying the cake, weren't they? They didn't want to attempt the recipe the bakery did. Everyone gets to have cake again. It's completely understandable to want to taste your late wife's cake again, and it's not your fault that you couldn't recreate it yourself. While your kids might be upset, their reaction seems a bit extreme. You didn't sell a family heirloom, you just wanted to enjoy a cherished memory. They could try to be more understanding of your grief. Now you can have your cake and eat it. Not the asshole. You didn't sell it to them, you gave it to them. And I think it's so much nicer that her recipe continues on rather than being forgotten. It's a way to keep her memory alive. Not the asshole. They didn't want to make the cake. You found someone who could understand it, and hopefully the recipe will make other people happy too. TBH, I want a dark chocolate cherry cake now. Also, most secret family recipes are just something that was published decades ago, and grandma or mom just tweaked it a little to suit their tastes. We just realized that great-grandma's oatmeal chocolate chip cookie recipe was printed on the back of Quaker Oats canisters. Grandma just added the chocolate chips. Not the asshole. Your kids, on the other hand. Not the asshole recipes aren't magic. Someone's eventually gonna figure out the precise measurements and ingredients that make the food. If it helps remember her better, then no big whoop. If they want to remember her by making their own cake with the recipe, then they can do that. They should rest assured, knowing they can now enjoy cake from that recipe of their moms and Loki. Be happy to share it with others. Would you consider dropping the name of the bakery so some of us can try it? This cake? I personally have been searching high and low for a particular chocolate cherry cake. For 30 years I once had from a Chicago bakery, which closed down. It wasn't a Black Forest cake. It was chocolate, and cherries galore. I've spent so much time, money, and wasted food trying to recreate it. It haunts me. I even enrolled into culinary school. But alas, I was not meant for pastries. I just wanted to eat her cake again. I am so sorry. Your kids would have rather never have that cake again than learn to make it themselves, and got upset at you for finding someone who couldn't. Who's the asshole in this scenario, I wonder? I'm sorry your wife died, and I'm glad you're able to still get some comfort from something she left behind. Those kids can kick rocks. You're fine. Being a widow, I certainly understand the need to have something that connects us back to our late spouse in a meaningful way. That cake is one of your meaningful things. Since the grown kids weren't helpful, didn't want to help, and you said you weren't a great baker, I think getting a bakery to help you out with making that recipe workable was brilliant. Enjoy your cake. You did nothing wrong. Not the asshole. The last sentence had me crying buckets like, oh, sorry. Not the asshole. If the kids are that upset, maybe they should have helped you in the first place. NTA. Your kids won't make it, so you found another way. I was told that they will not figure out the recipe and to stop asking. If they were not going to figure it out, then no one would use the recipe. I'm sorry you have kids that call you a jerk. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, you asked them to try and they didn't. You really wanted it and found someone who made it. So if those kids, they are the jerks.